Last weekend, Tony Abbott's campaign launch was all about sealing the deal with the Australian people in this election, and afterwards the Liberal strategists really thought they'd achieved that. This campaign launched by Kevin Rudd was all about unpicking that certainty. The polls say that Tony Abbott is headed for a victory. Kevin Rudd is trying to undo that with two things: some positive announcements for TAFE, for small business, but largely a negative announcement, which is if you've got doubts about Tony Abbott, don't vote for him. That was really the central negative message of Kevin Rudd's campaign speech, and it's one that he will hope, if it doesn't deliver Labor victory, which looks unlikely at this stage, will at least save some of the furniture.
Well, that was a sensational launch and a sensational speech, and yes, we are competitive, there is no doubt about that, and we're focused on next Saturday, and I think the closer we get to polling day, the more people think about the prospect of having Tony Abbott as their Prime Minister, the more nervous they will become, and the more they will look to the vision outlined by Kevin Rudd today.
So is that your great hope, the doubts people might have about Tony Abbott? That's what you're pinning hopes on?
No, I think it's a combination of both. Kevin reminded Australia today about the Labor values that underpin everything we do. Building things, sustainable growth in the economy, sharing that growth around fairly, taking care of those who are disadvantaged, and of course the other side of the ledger is Tony Abbott and all he stands for, or indeed doesn't stand for.
You've introduced a whole bunch of quite complicated policy announcements just 7 days out from polling day. Can you explain them in that time? And may you have in fact bought off a fight with state governments over the TAFE announcement, which is going to be difficult to prosecute in an election campaign?
There's nothing complicated about what Kevin said today. TAFE is being destroyed by various state governments, including the New South Wales government, where of course I reside. Nothing complicated about giving small business tax breaks, nothing complicated in making sure Australian business get to participate in the big resource projects.
Just finally, how things are looking in the Hunter?
Things in the Hunter are good. We never take anything for granted. I'm working it hard, but I think we'll do very well there.
Anthony Albanese, Deputy Prime Minister, that was some warm-up speech. You really went through Labor's achievements in office, but how come we haven't been hearing more about that up until now?
Well, we've been a good government. We've been a good government for 6 years. If you look at our economic record, I went through today. Continued economic growth at a time of the global financial crisis, almost 1 million new jobs, low inflation, low unemployment, higher workforce participation, lower industrial disputes, all with a AAA credit rating. At the same time, we've made room for good social reform, including the Better Skills Plan, National Disability Care Australia, building on the Labor legacy of Medicare. I think we've got a good record, but there's more to be done. We need to make sure the national broadband network gets rolled out to every home and every business.
So was the real message, though, the one Kevin Rudd delivered at the end? If you've got doubts about Tony Abbott, don't vote for him?
Well, people do have doubts about Tony Abbott. They have doubts because of his record. They have doubts because of his record in supporting work choices, his record of making cuts to public health, his record when it comes to what he says about the national broadband network, that it should be destroyed, his record when it comes to international affairs, where he's basically not interested, and ridiculed Australia's bid for the UN Security Council. Today, we became the chair of the UN Security Council. We need a leader who's proud of that, not one who dismisses our engagement with the international community.
I was particularly excited about what's happening in the trade area. I mean, we have to skill our kids, give them apprenticeships, give them opportunities, and those are really key promises and commitments. That's good stuff for jobs.
It's going to be a fight with the states, isn't it?
Oh look, the states need to lift their game. I was a Premier for almost 10 years. Funding TAFE is fundamentally important. The states under the Liberals are not doing that, and the federal government needs to actually take the leadership. That's about jobs for our young Australians. I think that's a great thing.
So never too late, is that kind of the theme of the launch? Never too late?
Well, that's not for me to say, but for me it is. It's never too late. We're going to fight to the very end.
How are you going in your seat?
Look, if Ford's tough, it always is. These announcements today are great for Ford because they support small business, they support apprenticeships, and that plan to legislate to ensure that there's local content for projects over 300 million is brilliant. That's about manufacturing jobs. That will work very strongly in Ford. We've got a lot of working families who need manufacturing jobs. Good policy.
What I've seen is a lot of our candidates and a lot of our people out there talking about the big achievements, particularly of this government. So of disability care, of the education reforms, and certainly of our achievements during the global financial crisis. I think you're right that there is a big, long story about Labor as a a major force in building the great Australian institutions, and I think that was a story that was on show today.
And Labor's sticking with the idea that there are $70 billion worth of coalition cuts, even though the coalition says that there aren't. Are you going to look a bit silly if we get to the end of the campaign and they're not there?
Look, the coalition really need to lay out their actual financial plans, their intentions for the Australian people and the public services that they depend on. I think it's up to them to lay that out, and then we'll have a discussion about what that really means for us.
And just finally, do you really think you can still win this?
Indeed, we certainly can. There's a long way to go between now and next Saturday, and I'll be out there in the campaign fighting hard.